You're listening to a special edition of Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. No, it's Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed. But in fact, the name of the book that has come out today, published by Forbes Book, is titled Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed. 30 years as serial entrepreneur, 10 years writing the book, and over 200 interviews later, we now have a published book, and we're looking forward to talking about this today with Michelle Van Tilborg, who is my moderator, who will be the lead moderator for today's show. I will actually be the guest, not the moderator, so I have to learn to follow rules. And we will talk about some of the formulas in the book, and we're going to really get into it. And we have a number of guest speakers who are coming on board as well, who will talk about the book and also talk about some of the things that went into this book. You know, it's interesting that Clubhouse played a pretty significant role, and in fact was mentioned about 20 times in the book, because it does take a community to put a book like this together. Now, I'm going to pass it over to you, Michelle. I don't want to hog the mic here. You're the moderator. You're interviewing me, so I will follow your lead today. I do know we want to wait until we get some more people in the audience, but again, you're listening to a special edition of Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed. It is our global book launch for Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. And today we are going to be talking about some of the theories, some of the concepts in this book, but also meeting with a number of people who've been involved in the book and who've actually contributed to the book as well. So really looking forward to it. I know if you want, you can share. I'm going to share my link right now. Oh, and there's Michael Gilmore, who got up in the middle of the night to come here and visit us. But I'm going to share my share the room right now on X, not Twitter, right? If you want to share the room, you know, you're welcome to do so. I'm going to share it on LinkedIn as well. I think it's just a great room for people to get involved in and to learn about what it really takes to start, scale, exit, repeat. Michelle, you're the moderator. I
Wow.
will hand it over to you, and I am now your guest. I am not in control.
That sounds amazing. And first, Colin, a huge congratulations. I know what a massive job this might be. I know you're a little modest, so I'm just going to tell the audience here, all the members. First, we're so happy that you were able to make this event. But Colin's book actually went live shipping today, and he debuted as an Amazon bestseller. So, Colin, congratulations to you and your team. That's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. And you know, I know there's a lot that goes into getting to launch dates. This book I mentioned took 10 years to write. It took 2 years. We really got serious about it in the last 2 years. A team of 6 people were included in the making of this book, from illustrations to interviewing potential guests and whatnot. We actually did about 200 interviews. What's amazing is this book never would have happened without Startup Club and Clubhouse.
That's right.
So we owe a debt of gratitude for Clubhouse and the community that was on it. We were able to interview, I mentioned 200 interviews altogether, but about 50 of them are actually in the book. And some of them, just give you a couple examples, Michelle, of some of the people that we interviewed here on Clubhouse. One of them is Jeffrey Moore, who wrote Crossing the Chasm Inside the Tornado. And that's actually really relevant because in the book we talk about technology adoption and catching the wave, especially the new AI wave. And we mention in the book that that the 2020s will be led by AI, and that the opportunities for startups are huge. So even though we submitted the book last November, we made some calls when we submitted it around the impact of AI, and it's interesting to see it's really been lining up nicely. But again, without the community, we couldn't have done this. Let me give you a couple more names. We had an author John Mullins, who wrote The Customer Funded Startup. And it's fascinating the statistics we got from him, the information we got from him in his interview. And I don't even know if you know this, Michelle, but 90% of the companies on the Inc. 5000 do not receive venture capital. And that was one of the things that he brought in to the show. We had on Joe Foster, the founder of Reebok, and he talked about how he went from $9 million to $900 million by going into the white space. And this was 1979, and one key thing happened. He actually launched a line of shoes in aerobics, and Jane Fonda wore his shoes on national television, and the line took off. And the company at one point was larger than Nike. It was the largest shoe company in the world in the mid 80s. And that was fascinating. And just chronicling that story and doing a chapter in the book around catching your big break, and his story was very, very interesting. And he comes up a few times throughout the book, as I've gotten to know him pretty well, and we've had a lot of conversations about starting, scaling, and exiting companies. And obviously, he exited a very big company there. I can't tell you how many people we've had on this show that are in this book, even people who we haven't formally invited as an interview, but they're on the show. People like Marsha Reese, who invented Sideway chalk and other technologies and products, and she came on and contributed. So again, it's really, really amazing how much the community's helped out with this book.
Yes, absolutely. And, I want to kick this off. I want to read a couple of things from the book, Colin, to get us started. Okay. I know from working with you, this has been a real mission, a labor of love, and you have done it to give back to the community as a successful person. But, what strikes me, a couple of things, is the dedication. And this is why we also do Startup Club. It is why we do Startup Club. You said dedicated to all the entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs who want to learn. So, Colin, I don't want to speak for you, but why did you write this book? Like, what was your motivation? I'm looking at it. It's a hefty book. I think it could be a college textbook. It's, gosh, almost 500 pages. It's beautiful. It's broken into sections, just like the title: start, scale, exit, repeat. And there's, it's a wealth of information. But what actually made you want to literally sit down and write a book like this?
Okay, it's interesting. I don't think it would meet the standards of being a scholastic textbook. It's very much written for entrepreneurs, for those who have ADHD. They're very short paragraphs. We have over 200 callouts. We have 30 illustrations. We've really tried to make it simple and understandable and actually an easy read. And people who have read it already have told me that it actually goes really fast. But to answer your question directly, you read the first line of the book, and I'll read the last line of the book. In addition, it is my hope that one day both my kids, Kirsten and Quinn, will pick this book up and learn from it as much as I have learned from all those who have contributed to it. For me, just having my children learn from the mistakes that I have made, from the successes that I have had, from the 50 or 60 interviews that were captured in this book of people that we met here in Clubhouse and outside of Clubhouse, to learn from all of these people, to put these theories on paper and to pass that down to my children, that is a victory. And I would have done the whole thing over again just to have the chance to pass this down to my two children. And that was the number one motivating factor for me. Now, I will say that it was a lot of work. People ask me, would you write another book? And I said, well, this one took 10 years, right? And, you never know where books can come out. As you know, there's a lot of books out there. A lot of them don't necessarily get attention. Thankfully, today we've seen us hit the bestseller category for Amazon in 4 different categories, which I think was a little bit of a surprise for some people at Forbes Books, but I don't know. I mean, I do think that it is a book that challenges a lot of conventions. There are theories in the side of this book that may be a little controversial, especially around Silicon Valley, and I've termed it Silicon Valley disease. Not to mention, like, if you're in Silicon Valley, don't freak out. I'm a big supporter of Silicon Valley and the companies they produce there, and they produce more and bigger companies than any other companies in the world. But often we see young entrepreneurs try to emulate some of the unicorns. And in this book, I caveat right at the very beginning of this book, in the introduction, I say this book is not a get-rich-quick book. This book is how to figure out how to get to your first million, to launch a startup. This book is about how to scale from 1 million to 10 million or 10 million to 100 million and then exit. That's what this book is about. So it's not the get-rich-quick type of books you might often see. And yes, the book is long, but also it's not easy launching a startup. It's never been easy launching a startup. So to expect you can get a fluff piece in 20 pages or 60 pages or even 100 pages, and that's going to answer the theory of or crack the code of what it takes for a startup to succeed, no, that isn't going to happen. We had to go in all the way, do it really well or don't do it at all. It's one of our mottos at the company, and we had to make it comprehensive. I mean, when we talk about start, it goes through so many different aspects of what it takes from the time you come up with the idea, or even helping you come up with the idea, to taking action on that idea, to getting that idea to a successful point in time, we call a stage gate, to setting up your first business plan, which, by the way, only takes a half hour. I did it yesterday at the NSU with a cohort, a group of 12 entrepreneurs. They each did it in about 35 minutes, completed their business plan. And we're not talking about a business plan for investors. We'll let ChatGPT do that. We're talking about a business plan called the 4 Sticky Note Business Plan. And it covers 4 areas: the story, the people, the money, and the systems. And then the book takes you from starting that business to scale, and all of the aspects needed to scale a business. Again, talking about the story and how your story changes during scale. Talking about how you hire great people and how you lead great people to get to the next level. And talking about how to raise money and what types of money to raise. Oh, that's interesting. Jenny Casson, she did a show on Startup Club every week, and I started joining her show. I said, Jenny, I'd love to interview for the book, and I'd love to do a show on Clubhouse. We interviewed her, and it's probably the most complicated chapter in the book, which is raise money the right way at the right time. And she's an author herself, and she's written a book on the same topic, and she's a lawyer. But we do get into, the types of money that you need to raise. Earlier, I talked about VC funding. The fact of the matter is, only 10% of Fortune 5,000 companies are VC backed. Only 0.05% of startups are VC backed. So we talk about VCs in the book as well. And we talked about cases like Clubhouse, for instance, where they actually do need VC funding, or they did need VC funding, because they had to move at an extraordinarily fast rate and were up against some very large competitors in a new space called social audio chat. And then we shift after you've scaled your business to exit and how to prepare your company for exit to maximize it on sale. And then after that, we talk about repeat, which is probably my favorite chapter, which is you've heard a lot of these one-hit wonders, these music bands, but then you hear of the classics, the one that can do one after another, the Beatles, Taylor Swift. My wife was bugging me to go to a Taylor Swift concert yesterday. I'm like, okay, please don't sign me up for that one. But fact of the matter is, she can produce, music over and over again, and Lady Gaga, and so many great artists. We see that, and we see that with serial entrepreneurs as well. Probably the ultimate being Elon Musk in our day and age today. All right, I'll give it a break. I know I
No,
probably
no, no.
diverted from your question, but
That's okay. That was great. And I agree with you. This is such an accessible book. It's extremely easy to read, and there's so many, as we, as you termed as you were going through it, golden nuggets, all laid out so nicely, so that one could skim through it or read through it, whatever makes sense for them. But just kind of getting back to one of the points, and you start the book out this way. What makes a startup successful? Is it dumb luck, hard work, or is there a winning formula? Those are the questions I've been working to answer for over 30 years as a serial entrepreneur. Colin, I love how you started it out. And having read the book myself, I know it's been your life quest to figure out that formula. So I want to ask, we have a many special guests actually up here on the stage, but Adam Whitty has actually joined the session here. Adam is the president of Forbes Books. I think you're also the founder. Is that right, Adam? You're on mute, Adam. It would be the little mic on the bottom right-hand side. All
Michelle,
right.
I am here.
Awesome. We love just you see a lot of books, Adam, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing what the team working with Colin, you all have accomplished. But we'd love to know your thoughts on the book, and what people could expect to take away from it.
Well, let me start by saying this. At Forbes and Forbes Books, our business exists to celebrate entrepreneurship and to celebrate entrepreneurial capitalism. And we believe wholeheartedly that the world is a better place because of entrepreneurs. And we exist to publish content to educate and inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs. And so Colin's book is so perfectly aligned with the mission of Forbes and what everything at Forbes is all about. And let me just say that it is such a great pleasure for us to have played a small part in making this happen. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a founder, just like many of the people on this call. And I've read a lot of great books. And let me tell you, Colin's book, I already learned things that, in 20 years of doing this, I didn't know. And we laid it out working with Colin. We designed it in a way to be very compelling, very easy to read. And the biggest thing that I'll say about this title, this book, is that this isn't a book that you read from front to back and then go put it on your bookshelf. This is like a Bible. This book should be referenced on a regular basis. And at least for me personally, it's sitting in the right corner of my desk. And whenever I have a question about people or about strategy or about money, I go to the book just as a reference to remind me of what other successful entrepreneurs before me have done. So I just want to say this is so Forbes. This is so entrepreneurship. This is so entrepreneurial capitalism. And we are just so honored to be a part of it.
That's great. And I couldn't agree more. I also think of it as a reference book. I said a textbook, but I think you said it better, Adam. It is a fantastic reference book. So thank you for adding that. And we're so happy that you could make it.
not that I want to challenge you a little bit here. I just, when you say textbook, reference book, you're thinking boring college textbooks. No, the approach that we took here was really about stories, stories of success and failures, personal and others. This book looked at so many different stories, like Richard Hanbury, who got in a car accident at the age of 19 and was told he had 5 years left to live, and then came up with an idea around sound modulation that helped him recover that he later turned into a company called Sana Health. Talk about solving a problem or identifying an issue. These are the types of stories that we captured here on Clubhouse. And I think that when you start to go through the book, you'll realize it's a compilation of stories. You know, it's one thing to say that you should do this in business, you should do that. It's another thing when you read a book or you listen to a speaker or you're on Clubhouse. I often say this on Clubhouse, Joe, that those who come on Clubhouse and tell stories about their own successes or failures, that when they do that, people will remember those. When I've done speeches in the past, a year or two later go by, and people will say, wow, I remember when you sold your first company, the story, and you got home at 2 o'clock in the morning, you climbed up 3 flights of steps to your tiny little house and woke your wife up and handed her a $22 million check. And people remember that. And then she looked at the check and she says, I don't understand. I don't understand. There were just too many zeros for her to comprehend. It's those type of stories that we talk about in the book. And I also want to emphasize this again. We talk a lot about failure. You're looking at one of the people who think I'm a smart entrepreneur. At 28 years old, we got a company to over $1 billion. I own 14% of it. And we got hit with the dot-com crash. I did not have control of this company. We had merged it with a cable company, and a stock that was trading at $19 a share went to 6 cents a share. And here's this 28-year-old losing over $100 million on a publicly traded stock because I was locked up. And what was worse, all of my staff who were paper millionaires, they lost it all as well. And that was because we spent 10 years building a company and 10 weeks selling a company and blowing it up. So when it comes to these kind of lessons, these kind of stories, they're captured in the book. So that's where I took it a little bit of, it's not a textbook. It's not scare people off. It's really a compilation of stories.
And that's great. We appreciate that input. I would say you're right. It's a combination. Like for me, I appreciate the stories and all the formulas as you kind of consistently refer to. In fact, you say entrepreneurship is a trade and you need to master it. So, like, talk about that a little bit and how your learnings and your interviews and your book helps people master that trade of entrepreneurship.
Well, that is a thesis in the book. The thesis is that entrepreneurship can be learned and that we can learn from others. Now, don't get me wrong. Look, I lost $100 million. So I learned the hard way and 10 years of hard work building a company in the 90s. That's one way to learn, right? But another way to learn is by listening and learning from others. And I've been involved in an organization called EO for 25 years, and I've connected with hundreds of entrepreneurs, and I've learned a lot of lessons from them that have helped me improve and guided me forward. I learned liquidity or control based on that story I told you about, where we were locked up with a stock trade. You either sell your company for liquidity or you maintain control. That's been a central learning lesson for me. I don't believe that we have to build an identity as entrepreneurs around one company. I have no doubt that Paul Davison and Rohan will, if they sell this company for $1 billion, $5 billion, whatever they decide to sell Clubhouse for ultimately, I have no doubt that they can go ahead and build another company very successfully. In fact, we quote a statistic in the book that serial entrepreneurs have more than double the success rate over first-time entrepreneurs because they've learned a lot of the lessons. You can actually increase your chances of success by learning and understanding the code that goes into a startup. An example of that is one simple thing: joining an incubator, accelerator. We had the president of SCORE on who has 10,000 volunteers. It's an organization run by the SBA. She was on Clubhouse about 3 weeks ago, and she told us that the chances of when you get a mentor from SCORE, you increase your chances of success by 3 times. So the thesis of this book, what I'm talking about, it's all about learning, developing, understanding entrepreneurship, and then you can apply it over and over again. We run an incubator today with 10 companies, companies like paw.com, which is a dog products company, companies like Escape Club, which is 19 Airbnbs in South Florida. We run a number of companies in this incubator where we apply the methodologies that we've learned from this book to our companies to help us succeed. Paw.com, 3 years in a row on Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies. So we're seeing the effect it can have. Now, it didn't start out like this, Michelle. Back in 2006, I was CEO of a publicly traded company that we had founded, and the wheels were coming off the bus. We were fighting. My brother and I were constantly fighting. Employees were fighting, and up until that point in my career, we had done everything based on instinct, simply instinct, and did not have a lot of systems in place. The board was moving against me. There was one board member who said, I think you're over your head. You just don't know what you're doing. You're a little bit too young. So I reached out to a friend who introduced me to Patrick Thean, who runs a company today called Rhythm Systems. It's a goal-setting platform. And I met with him in Vegas, and I asked him, can you help me out with my board? I just need you to do some stuff and get rid of the, take the board off my back and make it look like I'm running a professional organization. He says, no, Colin, I'm not going to work with you like that. It's like an overweight person going to the doctor and saying, just give me the pill. I don't want to do the hard work. Patrick said, no, I'm not going to work with you unless you do everything. And that means 2 days of strategic planning per quarter, weekly meetings, weekly goal setting, daily sales huddles, goal setting, everything. And when we implemented all those systems, we tripled our revenue, sold for 17 times EBITDA to a Fortune 500 company, and had a very successful exit. Thankfully, because this was the next company after the one that I had lost all the money at in 2000. So following that big loss, we jumped right into this company called Hostopia, and we had a very successful exit. And this time, by the way, liquidity or control, we sold for all cash.
That's amazing. And, therein lies the beauty of the stories, right? It's real, and they're actually based on, fact, real life, rather than a hypothesis. And I agree with you on that aspect, Colin. That is a big difference that your book is. It is true life stories of methods that actually work. But I want to go back to our audience. We have some amazing members here, and I would like to go to Jeffrey Sass. Jeffrey Sass, obviously, or maybe not, many people will know, is one of the co-founders of Club Domains, and he's worked side by side with you and been involved in the book as well. I'd love to hear Jeffrey's thoughts on the book and how it could be of use to people. Jeffrey. All right,
There
maybe.
we go. Sorry. No, I just had to find the button on Clubhouse because it's been a while. No, thank you, Michelle, and congratulations again, Colin. It's really great. I think, I really liked what Adam said earlier about, keeping this book nearby. And I'm a, avid Kindle reader from the very first Kindle, actually from even before, from the Rocket ebook before Amazon even came out with their Kindle. So almost all of my books have been read on my Kindle, but actually Colin's book is one where it really is a special opportunity to have that hardcover copy because it really is a reference book, but not in the negative way, Colin, as you said, but in the positive way of something that you could flip open, dog ear the pages and the sections that are meaningful to you and refer back to them again and again. And the job that you and Michelle and the Forbes team did in terms of the interior design of the book is fantastic because it's not just a lot of gray words. The sections are broken up intelligently. The way it's broken up with some key illustrations. It's just really a beautiful physical book to have sitting on my desk, and I'm proud to have it here. So I think this is one case where if you're like me and are a Kindle reader and prefer your ebooks, this is one where you should change your rules and actually have a physical hard copy and have it sitting on your desk nearby because it is something, as Adam said, that you can refer back to again and again and again. And I think the chapters are very short and digestible. There's just a lot of them, but they're easy to read. So congratulations again, Colin. I'm delighted to see your success with this launch. I'm delighted to be mentioned in the book and to have been with you for a part of this journey. So congratulations again.
Yeah, thank you. And we know from studies, and it's quoted in the book, that there is uh, a high number of entrepreneurs who have ADHD. ADHD is a talent that a lot of these entrepreneurs use to help succeed in their startups. And we wanted to make this book essentially for the entrepreneur, starting with their sort of frantic pace in mind. They can pick it up and read literally a concept in 2 pages in a chapter. There are 200 callouts. There are 30 illustrations. We wanted to make reading a physical book fun again. Now, I know we drove the Forbes team nuts, Adam. I admit that. I remember getting not a complaint, but I remember getting a statement that, this book is already double the size. You've got to, of our average Forbes book, you've got to reduce the size. And I tried. And, working with my coach, my writing coach, we tried. We just couldn't figure out how to eliminate, and we did eliminate about 10 or 20 pages in the book. So we did bring it down. But it was just funny. We didn't really follow a lot of the conventions that a lot of book authors would come out. I just know even the printing costs, we're looking at the printing costs, just to print it was $15 a book. I mean, it is something else. It's when you see it physically, if you touch it, when people actually pick it up, they're just amazed by it. And listen to this, Adam. I got a call from Gerald Jenkins out of the blue. So we had submitted it for an award, and he was the founder of IPPY and Axiom Awards. And he called up, I emailed my assistant one night, I said, can I talk to Colin? And sure, so the next day I get the call. He goes, in 30 years, I've never seen a book that had that many endorsements and looked so nice. And I'm like, you know what? Coming from you, I really appreciate that. So if if you're thinking about the book, you should consider the full physical book. The Audible is not out yet. It is coming out, we believe, in about 3 or 4 days, maybe 7 days. And we had Robert Graham. He's done some Budweiser commercials. He's a phenomenal voice. We had him do the voiceover, and I know that I've gone through it twice. The Audibles, it sounded amazing. In fact, when I was listening to the Audible, I was coming back on the auto train from Virginia to Orlando, and I'm listening to it. And after about half an hour, it wasn't me. I didn't feel like that was me in the book. It felt like some other expert writer who had written this and whatnot. So it was a fascinating experience.
It was. And I'll just say it is like several books in one. And I'm glad, like Jeff said, I'll echo what he says, that I'm able to have it in one book and I don't have to wait for follow on books because I think you could have made it several books, but I do appreciate that it's one comprehensive book. So, Colin, I want to get to some of the other audience. We have a number of people here that you have worked with, been business partners with um, throughout your career. So, I'm going to go around here. We have Norm. Norm is joining us. Norm from Canada. I know that you and Colin have known each other for a long time. You were in EO together. You have done several business together. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the book and any highlights for you personally.
Yeah, what I've heard so far is almost, well, you stole my thunder, because everything that's been said is what I liked about the book. First of all, it's very easy to read, which I love. I'm probably fall into that ADHD group. So just having all the different call outs, it's color coded, which I liked as well. So if I wanted to go back and refer to a section, I could just go back to it and easily look at the section. But on every page, there's just a quick, simple note. Like the one, I just turned to this one, and it says, uh, don't be a one person show. On the next one, it says, nothing motivates more than success. Then there's another quote, and again, it's smaller paragraphs. What I've known about Colin over the years are his successes and his failures. I've been there when he's had the highs and the lows, and this book kind of sums it up, and I've loved it. Also, one of the other things, and it might be me, I'm more of a creative guy than on the analytical side, uh, but it's just the color and the illustrations that pop. It just very easy for me to read, bullet points. So that's my takeaway. But this is a reference guide to anybody who wants to, and I've already recommended this to a bunch of people that I know, just a recommendation guide just to take a look at how you start, scale, exit, and repeat. It's it sounds easy, but you have to get it from the book, and it's all there. I've read a ton. I am a I read a lot of books. I have a lot of audible books. And I told Colin, I know I'm his friend, but this is one of the best business books, best reads I've ever had. So, and I tell him, he knows I would. I'd tell him if it sucked or where it sucked, but this is great.
Awesome. That's so awesome to hear, Norm. So, Colin, I agree with Norm. Like, you have this way of really resonating your ideas in a way that's very memorable, very, one line oriented. It's almost like sitting down with you and, just getting a full brain dump of all your experiences and everything that you've taken away from the over 200 people that you interviewed, their highlights and passing on their learnings. You know, what tell us what made you think of writing this book in that type of style. Like, why didn't you take a more, for example, academic approach? What was it that you really, were thinking in taking on this?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. First of all, it's just the way I communicate. It's the way I write. I asked. So we set up an AI that uses the information from the book, and we put that book into the AI. So we've trained the model with the copy from the book, and you can now go to it. It's at startupclubai.com. It is our plan to add on the all the shows as well. So if you're looking for a particular topic, I want to exit my company, it'll give you some excerpts from the book, but then also it'll show you or direct you to the clubhouse shows that talk about exiting your company. So you can actually really get into a topic with the AI. And so I asked the AI, I said, this is the one that was trained, not the chat GPT, because it doesn't have it on there. But I asked the AI, what is the writing style of this book? And it came back as being extremely conversational writing style, simple to read. So ChatGPT or the AI has validated what we were trying to set out and do. That's why I said earlier, it's not really a scholastic book. We had on the Harvard professor who wrote Why Startups Fail. And we had on Jeffrey Moore. And sometimes when you read these books, and I don't want to pick on them because, these are legends. Like Jeffrey Moore is a legend. He is been critical in my thinking around adopting new technologies and riding technological waves. But some of the books can be a little challenging to understand and a little, using the lack of a better term, professorial. And I didn't want it to be like that. I want it to be simple. Now, the book started in 2012 when I was asked to fly to MIT to do a speech in front of 60 very successful entrepreneurs at the Masters of Business program run by Vern Harnish, and the moderator was Patrick Thean. And if you remember, Patrick Thean was my coach who took me through 10 years prior to this event. And it was interesting because I just broke my leg skiing, so I had to fly up there and I had to talk about my successes and why I was so successful as an entrepreneur and started so many companies and sold so many companies. And I went in there with this concept or notion that at each stage of the company, you start, scale, exit, repeat, that you need great people, a great story, you need the money, you need the oxygen, which is very lacking in startups, very lacking in most startups, and you need the right systems. And they completely change from one phase to the next. In start, it's all about instinct. In scale, it's about leadership and systems. In exit, it's about optimizing for sale, and then repeating that all over again by tracking your A players and bringing them back, and putting together your team, not by taking from your companies you've sold to, but by hiring ex-employees who you believe are A players who've left that company and are already working at another company. You'll see as you go through this book, there's a lot of talk about integrity over money. Again, this is not the way to get rich quick book, but to build a solid foundation for understanding of what it takes to start, scale, exit, repeat. But that's how it started out, just being asked to speak on this topic. And I was pretty nervous about that whole event. I hobbled in there. It was a 6-hour lecture, and we put together these theories. And at the point, the bells started going off. This is actually really good, and we should write a book. What I found was fascinating, though, in the last 2 years, after we had sold .club, Michelle, Jeff, and I, we sold .club to GoDaddy Registry. We really got serious about the book because we had applied all the theories in this book in launching and scaling .club and having a very successful exit. And we just found that was very, very interesting. But what's fascinating, in the last 2 years, we did over 200 interviews, mostly on Clubhouse, and they were authors, experts. So we tried to validate a lot of the theories, like learning from John Mullins, the customer-funded startup, learning from Bhavin Turkai, who started 2 unicorns, learning from Joe Foster, who started Reebok, quite frankly. What's old again is new again. He got reviews, he got Jane Fonda to wear the shoes, and he went from 9 million to 900 million in only 4 years. It's fascinating stories, fascinating people we've met. And it's interesting because it really is not something that one individual could have ever done or put together. It was something that required a team and a community. And I know I talk a lot about this community. I'm very thankful to Clubhouse and Startup Club because it's that community that made this book real and it made it today. And I'd love to
It's
hear from some more
amazing.
people. I mean, Mr. Community's here.
Yeah.
Ed, the founder,
So
he's the one who
I was
started
getting
it.
to
But
Ed
all
next.
right.
All right. Let me do it, Colin. So yeah, so we talked a lot about how a lot of this content was developed through the use of Clubhouse and interviews. And Ed, I don't even think, when we started working together, that we had any idea where the road would lead. So, Ed, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the book and how it's evolved to be this amazing club, this platform where people can really exchange ideas, and it's led to a good amount of content generated for the book. Ed.
Well, first, Colin, congrats on the launch. And thank you for going to all the trouble to have decades of experience, decades of learning, connecting with people, and sharing it with all of us. And the whole spirit of why Startup Club came to be, you epitomize in so many ways, because the whole idea was to be a catalyst to help people connect, learn, and grow together. and how you've taken that to the next level has just been inspiring. So thank you for that as well. Um, Beyond that, I'm just looking forward to learning more from the book, and happy to know that Startup Club played a small role in helping it to become all it can be. So congrats again.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I don't think a small role. I really believe it was significant. You don't take on the topic of trying to crack the code of what it takes to make a successful startup by yourself in your own experiences. You need to validate it. You need to interview a lot more people. You need to really be a little bit more empirical, bring in studies, experts, and others. And that is what I think took the book to the next level. It would have been a bit of an autobiography if we didn't have Startup Club. Don't get me wrong. I do share a number of my personal stories and failures and successes. But by having people like Marsha Reese and talking to her and seeing what she has done and how she took solving problems and creating products. And I met her on Clubhouse, right? Jeffrey Sass here talks a lot. We use some of his stories as well about his time at Barpoint and the mistakes that were made there, and he openly shared with those. A lot of conversations that happen on Clubhouse are very authentic. You don't have that sort of crisp podcast style, responses. It's a very authentic communication style. And I think people get a little deeper when we have those conversations than you would on like just a general podcast, a one-on-one interview style. Michelle?
Yeah, I would agree. And it's been, we think of it as I say that it's like the stage. It really, where else could we have brought so many people together to be able to interact with Colin and the team and share their stories? I can't think of anywhere else that it would be this, I'm going to quote, say, pure of a platform where people, well intentioned, trying to share and help each other. On that note, we have Michael Gilmore here. Michael Gilmore does a regular show as well with us here on Startup Club. You've been instrumental in helping us grow. So, Michael, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the book, the whole process.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Michelle. And congratulations, Colin, on an amazing book from down here in Melbourne, Australia. Yeah, so and I really mean that. It is an amazing book. The thing that really struck me as I began to read it is just the number of stories, one story after another, but not just all the hype type stories where is everyone's going to become a unicorn, but the real stories of real entrepreneurs doing real things, and it's like it's some of the heartbreaks as well on that journey. And what really hit me as I began reading the book, Colin, is it was written by an entrepreneur who really knows what they're doing, who has been there and done that, and your heart really comes out in the writing. And it is definitely going to be a Bible. It's going to be sitting on my desk and become very dog-eared. I've been an entrepreneur now for over 40 years, and I haven't read a book like this one before. I really haven't, and I've read a lot of business books. So my shelves are absolutely full of business books, and this one's not going to end up on the shelf. It'll end up on my desk, and that's a big statement. It really is, because I just find it was outstanding, and I'm looking forward to reading it again and again, and I can't wait for the Audible book coming out in a few days' time. I'm really looking forward to that as well, because there's nothing like just continually revising things. Just some of the concepts you've come up with in here on starting, like there's everything from raising the cash, like how do you raise money, or do you need to raise money, proving out the concept. It's how do you then scale, and exiting, like a lot of people sort of they don't think about the exiting part in their businesses. And You go through it in detail. Like, how is it you can exit and realize your capital value? Like, I haven't read a book really like this before. And congratulations, you've done an amazing job. I'm looking forward to sitting down with you and toasting you to such an incredible journey I know you've been on in your business career, and to codify it into a book like this is a privilege for us all to read. It really is. So, congratulations, and I'm looking forward to book number 2 that comes out,
That'll
which
be
will be
another
great
10,
to have a read.
that'll be another 10 years, right? No.
Another 10 years.
Let's
Michael,
not. Let's hope not.
yeah, Michael, I think I appreciate that. I know it's 2 o'clock in the morning, Australia, 3 o'clock in the morning. You got up for this event. I really appreciate that.
I wouldn't miss it.
And
I
we
wouldn't
do.
miss
I
it.
love Michelle and I are co-moderators on his show, The Complete Entrepreneur, which really covers the human side of being a founder or being an entrepreneur or working in a startup, the chaos that exists. And so we try to deal with that. In fact, chapter 57, which is the last chapter of the book, we set out on this journey to crack the code of what it takes to start, scale, exit, repeat. And I believe we have uncovered a number of those key actions that serial entrepreneurs do to be successful. But what we haven't talked about is something most startup books never take the time to address: the toll of entrepreneurial life. We tend to be so company focused that we don't talk about the physical and mental rigors faced by the entrepreneur as an individual, or their impact on relationships that startup founders endure. I earlier complimented Zappos for putting together one of the best cultures of any company in recent memory. Like everyone, I was saddened to hear when Zappos founder Tony Hsieh died in a fire, either intentionally or unintentionally. As of the writing of this book, the situation is still under investigation, but it's been suggested by some that drug use could have played a part. And it goes on to talk about a study. Self-reported mental health concerns were present in 72% of entrepreneurs in the sample, a proportion that was significantly higher than the comparison group. Listen to this. 49% reported having one or more lifetime mental health conditions. The entrepreneurs were significantly more likely to report a lifetime history of depression, 30%, ADHD, 29%, substance use conditions, 12%. Does that include wine drinking? I don't know. I'm just joking. Bipolar diagnosis, 11%. And that is why your show is so important, Michael, because it gives an opportunity for startup founders or even those working in startups to come on stage and to talk about the human toll of being an entrepreneur. And I've always appreciated, you've done about 120, 130 episodes so far. It's been one of the shows that I enjoy the most because we're dealing with a part of entrepreneurship that we don't often deal with. The fact of the matter is, there isn't a startup that isn't up at 3 o'clock in the morning, at least 1 week a month, or 1 day a month, or 1 day a week, sorry, or 1 day a month. And I know that happens with my wife, who runs a school that we own, and I know it happens to myself, because I've been there. And in 30 years as a serial entrepreneur, I can't seem to shake that one piece. And I know it's because of the stress that we get from running these startups, Michael.
Yeah, well, Colin, thank you for your kind words. I must admit, I'm passionate about the whole life of entrepreneurs, and doing whatever we can to help them. It's not just me; it's Michelle and yourself, and also Jeff was there as well for the Complete Entrepreneur. But today is about you and your book, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. So I thank you for those kind comments. But you know what? This book is going to be transformational for many, for not just for improving the likelihood of businesses becoming successful, but improving the life of entrepreneurs as they begin to read through it. And that's the thing I know it's really close to your heart, is your passion for entrepreneurs and really seeing them not just become more successful as business people, but becoming more successful as people themselves. So congratulations once again, Colin.
Excellent. That's so awesome. Thank you, Michael. So we're getting close to the top of the hour. And we have some other folks here on the stage that I'd like to get to. I'm going to get to you in order. So, starting with you, Priscilla, love to hear any thoughts you have. You know, you've been engaging a lot on Startup Club, especially recently. You've been such, you know, an addition to the team, and we really appreciate it. But love to hear your thoughts about the book.
It's a pleasure and an honor being here. Thank you so much. And I want to say congratulations to Startup Club and Colin. This book, I'm looking forward to the Audible because that's how I listen to the books. But I want to point something really cool out. You know, one thing about you, Colin, is that one of the many things is that you do tend to be a visionary and you look ahead and can tell certain things. And I think that what you've experienced is very indicative of what's going to happen in the near future, and especially providing such insight for other entrepreneurs and professionals. So thank you again. Hats off to you for this amazing book. And I wanted to share something that you just mentioned. It is the startupclubai.com. It's literally a tool, you all, because I went there and I said, you know what? I want to know out of this book, what is the best applicable example that has been provided? So the response was this. Alfred Hitchcock in his movie Psycho, despite facing financial risk and resistance from studios, Hitchcock believed in his vision and put everything on the line to make the movie. His determination and execution ultimately led to great success and wealth, demonstrating the importance of having the right story, people, money, and systems in place to increase the chances of success in any venture. Again, congratulations. And anyone can check that out. It's startupclubai.com. Super cool.
Yeah, it's you know it's funny because I really enjoyed the movie, and I think every entrepreneur who's trying to raise money or every startup founder, it comes to this point in time, and here's a guy at this point in his history, he'd been fairly successful actually as a director, but decided to take every penny he had. One scene, I'm looking at the book right now, but one scene captures him cleaning the pool because he had to lay off his domestic staff to fund the movie. Not what you would suspect from a storied career. No studios wanted to support it, but he had a vision and he put it all on the line one last time. History proved him right, and he walked away and extremely wealthy from this venture. That's a great one. Thank you, Priscilla. I was nervous when you start talking to AI about things and it comes back with something like, well, this guy doesn't really know what he's talking about. No, I'm joking.
Awesome. All right, let's go. We have one more person here that would like to talk. I think maybe Noel. Did you want
Oh, sorry.
to
One
say
one
anything?
point, Michelle, I forgot to mention. That segment in the book was written in 2012.
Oh my
We actually
gosh.
quoted it from 2012 prior to the launch of .club. And we basically said, in the exact words it was written, we said, if we apply the theories of start, scale, exit, repeat to .club, then we should have a successful outcome. Now, this was not a preordained success, as Jeff and Michelle know it. We traveled to about 50 countries. We went to China, each of us around 12 times to get approval and to launch it in China. It was not a fait accompli. But we did follow the systems, we did work it, and 10 years later, we proved that start, scale, exit, repeat is a methodology that does work.
Absolutely. I can attest to that, as I know Jeff can as well. And I'm going to add a little fun fact there. I think a lot of the writing happened while you were on planes, Colin.
That was it. That was my only time I wrote, was when I was
Yeah.
on planes. It was interesting. I was on a plane a lot.
Amazing how you were productive at all times. I admire that. But let's get to Noel as we are almost at the end of our hour. Noel, welcome.
Well, I can maybe wrap this up nicely because I was trying to buy the Audible book and I couldn't find it anywhere. And then I looked on Kindle and I looked to see that I could have Kindle read it aloud to me. But I'm now going to get the hard copy and the Audible. So I'm really glad I listened. And I look forward to going through the book and following. Maybe you take some chapter readings, maybe that's another room if you want to pick certain topics that we can kind of follow along.
Yeah, and we're actually gonna devote the next 4 shows on Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Reveal, which is every Friday, 2 o'clock, to start, scale, exit, repeat. And we're really gonna get into start and the formulas behind it. We're really gonna get into scale. We're really gonna get into exit, and we're gonna really get into repeat. And we'd love to have people on stage who, for instance, we're talking about start. You started a business. Why did you start that business? How did you come up with the idea? What were the actions that you took to get that business out of the gate? How did you raise the money? Those kind of things. So we're going to really dig deep into that. Now, here's a confession, and this is where Clubhouse is authentic, okay? So I screwed up the Audible. We hired, Forbes introduced us to 10 different speakers. We picked a great speaker. His name's Robert Graham. And we chose him because he's quite animated, Noel. So you're going to want to get the Audible because the Audible is quite animated. We knew we wanted someone who's animated, but I also wanted a younger voice because I wanted this book to not just reach out to 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds. I wanted to reach out to teens and 20-year-olds and others who are thinking about launching startups as well. So he did the recordings, and I went through the recordings myself and listened to the book twice. And by the way, it went really fast. It was fascinating, actually, to whatever. But he was so young, he didn't say certain things correctly originally. He said things like diskette, he called it disquete. .us, he called .us. So there were some things that he was just not aware of, like earlier on terminology and stuff. So we went through it. We had him make all the changes. They fixed it. They submitted it. They say it's going to take 3 weeks to launch. We submitted it 2 weeks ago. I guess Audible's going to be holding on to their 3-week wait list. But it is definitely worth listening to. The gentleman who did it, he's done a number of books. He even done a Budweiser commercial. And I'm so glad that he did it, not myself or anyone else. He just did a phenomenal job.
It's amazing. And that's a great tip, Noel, about Kindle. Thank you for sharing that. So, Colin, we're at the end of our hour. Just want to remind everyone we are going to do a deeper dive into the book, as Colin said, over the next month or maybe more, depending on what the members like. So that's every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We'd love to have you join. We'd love to hear your stories. So please join. And if you're here in this room, please email us at hello@startup.club if you'd like to get a free electronic version of the book. We are going to be giving out the book. We want to share it. I know that's Colin's goal, is for people to be able to read it and to get something out of it. So, Colin, we're about to wrap here. Do you have any parting words for us?
Well, I will let everyone know that the physical book is really fun. Okay, even if you don't read, okay, because even if you listen to the Audible and you're gonna, hey, that's pretty interesting, because there's a lot of graphs and graphics and studies and callouts and illustrations that are used throughout the book, so you can literally follow it along and maybe try to enjoy the story a little bit better visually. I will say that we originally underestimated the demand for the book, and the Forbes had printed 1,500 copies. It became apparent last Thursday that the book's going to likely sell out, the first edition book, and so they printed another 2,000 copies. The order was placed last Tuesday, but it's going to take about 2 weeks to get, or 2 to 3 weeks. If you do buy the physical book now, you're getting the first edition version, and even with, it's got 2 or 3 small errors in it, which we've corrected. You won't notice them when you go through the book, but if you do want to, or if you do want to own an original edition of the book, I would recommend order it sooner than later.
So exciting. Um, I can speak for us here. We're so proud of you and so happy to be part of the team. So thank you everyone for being here today. We look forward to seeing you Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern, where we do a deep dive into each one of the sections of the book: start, skill, exit, repeat. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.